You know what? I shouldn't even be talking about this. It's Saturday, man. Let's get into it. Welcome to CNN. I'm your host, Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. All right. Let's have this. It's a Saturday, man. It's still weird to me to do videos on Saturday. But anyway, I'm trying to keep the vibe going. I said I was going to do 100 days in a row. I don't know if I'm going to really make it, but we will. I'm going on a vacation with my sons in July, the end of July for the first week of August. And it might not happen. If these YouTube subscribers don't grow, I know I'm not going to keep doing it. This joint is a lot of work, but you know, it is what it is. But let's have this conversation. This is an important one. I should have really saved this conversation for a day when I know that the people that watch my channel are on YouTube, but it is what it is. I've been a pastor for 17 years as of July 1st. So July 1st, 2008, I walked into my church, got the keys, learned how to turn the alarm system on, and the journey began. I had no idea I would still be doing this 17 years later. And part of the reason why I know how, you don't think about it. You know, you just start a job, unless you knew, like, I'm just doing this to do something else. Most of us, when we start a career, start something, we're doing it, and we're not thinking about how long we're going to do it. It just is what it is. It's paying the bills, and it is what it is. But then eventually, time goes by, and you have a chance to really look back and reflect. So this particular year, and 17 is not like, it's an incredible year because it is, but it's not like a unique year. Like, no one's celebrating the 17th anything, right? But it's usually the 5s and 0s for the most part. But I was at a birthday party for someone in my church, a member who's been there longer than me. And in that party, there were people who used to go to the church that were at this birthday party. And so it reminded me of like past church membership and just past, like everyone, like I'm sure if you go to church, you probably have seen people leave and people come in and join the church. And so you have this sort of transient culture where you got some people that have been there, they're going to die there. Some people have been there for a while. Some people are new. Some people come and go, whatever, right? So you see different iterations of your church if you stay in it for a long time. I've been a pastor 17 years, so I've literally pastored 6 or 7 different versions of Solid Rock Church, right? So I was thinking about that as I was looking at people, reminded of different things. And then just thinking about different things I've experienced in the past year or so, I realized, and I hadn't thought about this until recently, but I realized, you know, the one thing that causes the most church splits, right? Like for different reasons, people split. We hear about all the time. Sometimes it's some scandal. Maybe the pastor was embezzling money, or he was, you know, immoral, sexually immoral with people's wives, or whatever it is, right? Sometimes it's that. Sometimes lately in the last 5 years, it's been politics or just, you know, views on who to vote for. And then COVID caused a lot of drama and people just didn't know what to do. And I've seen a lot of different things happen in the church. I've been in the position of leadership for 17 years. I have friends that are pastors all over the country. I have different conversations with people. And I was surprised that there are 2 issues that cause more church splits than anything else. And these 2 issues may surprise you, and I'll explain why they do that. But these 2 issues cause church splits. I mean, they make churches fall apart. I've seen these 2 fall apart in churches. I've had to deal with it in my own church at times, all of it, right? There are 2 issues that cause more church splits than anything else I've seen in the last 17 years. And I think these are not what you think they're going to be, but they're really big. So here are the 2 issues. Drum roll, please. Here are the 2 issues: preferences and expectations. Stay with me. I know it's a Saturday, and I don't usually get heavy on Saturday because I'm working on a message and all. I got things to do. It's about you doing things. But let's have this conversation. For those of you watching live, thank you for a few of you that are watching, and those of you that watch it later. Preferences and expectations cause more church splits than anything else. Let me tell you what I mean by this. And it happens, it can be from to the leadership, to other members, or whatever. Let me tell you what I mean, right? On multiple levels, let me tell you what I mean. From a Christian to Christian, just members of a church, you can have an expectation of the kind of relationship you want to have with someone in your church, right? You can have that expectation. And when that expectation doesn't happen, people get offended easily. And I'm going to tell you why there's a deeper issue that we're going to connect to, but I'm just giving you on the surface and then tell you the deeper issue. You can have expectations or preferences for people in your church to be in relationship with them, whatever it is. It might be a couple you want to get with, or somebody single. It's like, man, I'd love to get to know them more. Or maybe you want to be discipled by someone in the church and you have these expectations. And when those expectations don't get met, or you have preferences in the way that it should go, you get disappointed, and then all of a sudden relationships are broken. You would be surprised how many churches have been crushed by preferences and expectations, unmet in parentheses before expectations, right? I see it a lot between peer to peer. I see it a lot when people come to a church and let's just say like, hey, I sang in worship. I led worship at my old church, or I led the children's ministry, and you're coming to join the church. You're coming to join my church. Cool. Yeah, we have a worship leader and we have a children's ministry coordinator, but we'd love for you to talk with them and try to serve. And I've seen people come in and expect to like basically just be used in a mighty way like they were before. And it was like, son, we have that. So you have to kind of like get in where you fit in, you know, like when you go to a church, you don't go there saying, well, this is what I want to do. It's like, what's the posture of the heart, right? Jesus said, don't lord it like the Gentiles do over the people they lead, but you be a servant, right? So I've seen that happen. These expectations come in and mess the church up. Let me tell you one of the main ones, and this is going to seem like bias because I'm a pastor and I can relate to this. But one of the biggest reasons why expectations and preferences split churches is when you have expectations or preferences of your leaders, particularly your pastors. And let me tell you what happens. Now, this happens in every scenario I've listed and plenty more. But let me give you what's happening underneath. How do expectations and preferences become the reason why most churches split? Let me tell you what happens. Because we take our expectations and our preferences, and when we don't get them, we create moral categories towards other people, right? So let me give you an example. Like when you have an expectation that your leader is going to do something or say something or do something, and he doesn't do it, or you don't like the way he says something in a sermon, or you don't like a decision that was made, what happens is it becomes a moral failing of that person, of that leader. I kid you not, when I've dug into the details of some of the people, now some people have been legitimately hurt, don't get me wrong. Some people have been legitimately betrayed. Leaders have been legitimately arrogant and all of this stuff and really sinning against people and don't care at all. But in many ways, most people don't have even a direct access to their pastors a lot. You usually see your pastor on a Sunday in some leadership context. You don't have the proximity to them to really be like, oh, they sinned against me. And that's the same way at my church. My church is a few hundred people. And I love it. I love my church. Some people, I just don't, we're you can come up and talk to me, but I'm not in proximity with you that much. Like you see me on Sunday mornings. If you ask to meet, we can meet, whatever those things, right? But what happens is expectations become moral failings of the other person when people don't get them. And it's really fascinating. I've seen it, and you wouldn't think this would happen. But what happens is you have a preference or an expectation. Like, let me give you a really, really good example of, in my 17 years of counseling, let me give you a really good example of what I'm talking about. I don't know where this comes from. I see it a lot in marriages. It happened in my own marriage. It happens in marriages. It happens. But there is an unspoken rule that if you're a Christian and I'm a Christian, you're not supposed to sin against me. You're not going to sin against me. And there's no scriptures that say that. Now, if I'm a Christian and you're a Christian, we're trying to honor the Lord in the way we relate, but it is to some degree inevitable that you're going to get sinned against and sin against other people who are believers. And I have seen people offended, appalled in their marriages, in relationships. Like, how dare, fam, they're just people. We're just the only person who didn't sin against people was Jesus. And even the way Jesus did things, people didn't like. Like, let's not get it twisted. People have this view of Jesus, like, let me give you another practical example. I'm talking from as a leader, right? People get offended at times when you bring like tough words, when you have to kind of correct your church or challenge them and let them know, like, hey, listen, you can't act like this. You can't take advantage of grace like this. You can't do that. And people will say stuff like, man, where's the grace? Like, where's the grace at? Like, as if somehow challenging people from a pulpit over the Bible lacks grace. And the question I always want to ask is, what do you think about Jesus then? Like, people act like Jesus was Mr. Rogers or something. Hello, boys and girls. How are you today? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A beautiful day for a neighbor. I'm just so glad to Man, Jesus was busting heads. He would call his disciples, are you so dull? You don't understand this passage? Oh, you of little faith? Remember when he said, should the Son of Man ascend to heaven like where he was before? Have you ever read Revelation 2 and 3, what Jesus said to 5 of the 7 churches? He said, I got a problem with you. And if you don't do something about it, if you don't repent, you're going to be in trouble with me. This is Jesus. Like, this idea that somehow grace is separate from correction is so unbiblical. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be sinful when you're correcting someone, but like it's just this expectation that you're supposed to hear messages, or you're supposed to have this experience where no one in your church sins against you. Your pastors only always affirm your faith. Do you realize that most pastors, when we preach, we're looking at the crowd. There are people that we're thinking, if you die right now, I'm not confident you'll be with the Lord. But grace, I'm supposed to be like, but hey, God loves everybody and everybody's good enough. Look at the tone of the Bible. Is the tone of the Bible jovial? Is it No. When the Bible says that Jesus, for the joy set before him, went to the cross, what do you think about when you hear that? Do you think Jesus was like, can't wait to die for folks? What about the Garden of Gethsemane? Crying, praying so hard, told the disciples, the only time ever where Jesus said, I need you, pray for me. Told the disciples, my soul is so anxious, so sorrowful, the sweat became drops of blood. That wasn't joyless in that moment. It wasn't like for the joy set before him, he went to the cross. That was the night before the crucifixion, right? Like, there's this idea and these expectations that we have that God wants us to have an American way of Christianity where it's, we have all the choices and we get to choose what we want. And it doesn't work like that. Our preferences and expectations do big damage. I've seen it happen. I've been in more counseling situations where people's preferences, and especially with couples counseling, when you're doing marriages, and it happened in my own marriage, where your preferences and expectations become moral failings of the other person when they don't meet it. There's a difference between I didn't like that they said that and that was morally sinful that they did that. Those are two different things. And I think a lot of times we think our preferences and expectations, they think we almost act like everyone feels the way we feel. You have no idea how many times, just me, little old me in my church, how many times people have had a preference and wondered, why aren't we doing this? And other people have said the total opposite. Man, I'm so glad we don't do this. And it's like, one person, can you turn the music down? It's just too loud. People can't hear. And you look around the church and people are singing out. And you're supposed to be like, what do I do? You'd be surprised. And then if it doesn't happen, then people get offended. And then they take it personal. And they think it's a moral failing on the other person. I kid you not. This has been the biggest reason why most churches actually have splits. It is not always the big scandal. Yes, those happen for sure. For sure. It's always the big scandal, but it's often a big. But sometimes, what I'm telling you, it's preferences and expectations become moral failings of the person that you don't get your preferences or your expectations are unmet. It happens in marriages all the time. I was joking with some couples that were at my house Thursday night. And we were joking about how you can be in this intense conflict. And I was saying how this is how you know it's the enemy and how it's the devil, right? Because you'll get in this intense conflict, and then when you come talk to me a couple days later, or you're showing up in group, you can't even remember what the conflict was about. Like when it's like, hey, can you give me an example? Yeah, I'm trying to think of it in a white, and they're not lying. It's not like they're like, oh, I don't really want to share this. They genuinely can't. So I just said, isn't that wild that you can't even think of an example? I've seen people have conflict over not remembering it, like over the details of an example. Like they meet with me. It's like, yeah, we got this conflict. I had this argument on Tuesday. I'd come home from work. It was like, no, it wasn't Tuesday. It was Wednesday. No, babe, it was Tuesday. No, it was Wednesday because remember, I went to such and such's house and we did this. Are you sure? Yeah, it was Wednesday. Because, okay, fine, it was Wednesday. It was at 4 o'clock. And I went over here and did it. Well, that's not what happened because I've seen this happen. It's a fascinating thing to just watch. And you realize like, wow, like we're really hyper and offended because we can't get the details right. So I'm telling you this, preferences and expectations have caused a lot of church splits. I'm not saying there's not moral failings of leaders. I'm not saying people have not genuinely been hurt and people haven't really sinned against other people into churches that wasn't legitimate, may have gone overlooked and may have contributed to it. But I kid you not, we have to learn not to make our expectations and preferences moral failings of the people that don't meet our expectations and don't have our preferences. We can't do that. We can't do it because it causes division and rivalry in the church. And oftentimes we forget, no matter who they are, whether they're a pastor or someone in the pew, whatever, we often forget that people are just human beings, man. We're just human beings trying to make it. But what do I know? It's Saturday. I got to finish my sermon. Grace and peace.